with that, Andrew?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. And then Stephanie, you'll keep admitting people. Perfect. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for joining us and for bearing with us on our premiere episode of TechLife Live. So we'll be working through some kinks as we go. I love it. Nothing like a prototype to get things going. I am Lacey Picazo. I'm the principal of ZoCo Design, a digital product and experience design studio.
Yeah,
Andrew, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, real quick. I was just going to say, I'm Andrew Bromwell. I'm the creative director at ZoCo. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk about today's topic, and excited to have our guest as well.
Woohoo! We are the co-host this spring for the Products for People talk show. Our focus is going to be on how the problems of people inspire great products, how understanding human experience informs and improves the future of technology. If you guys know Andrew and I, it's probably not a shock that we're going to be focusing to put a spotlight on amazing practitioners of human-centered design throughout this series. Totally our jam, but these people are not necessarily designers. We'll be joined this season by innovators, change makers, data scientists, and educators, all who are marrying human insights with their ambitions for technology to solve for the common good and create a better future. Before we get started this morning, share a little bit about what's to come. This coming April, so a month from now, we'll be joined by corporate innovation leaders in banking and in higher ed, and from my favorite home improvement company. Sorry, Nick, it's not your favorite one. And in May, we'll be talking data science and machine learning to predict future behaviors. We'll actually be continuing content past this spring for Products for People. We'll drop an email form in the chat in case you'd like to sign up for future updates, both for this show and for TechLife Live at large. If you didn't know, there are 15 shows going on every month that are all super, super excellent. So please check all of those out. But today specifically is a special conversation I'm really excited about. I'm going to let Andrew tee things up.
Yeah, thank you. So, you know, as an organization and as individuals, you know, we have a personal drive to make a meaningful impact on the communities that we live in. That's true for Lacey and I. That's true for everybody at ZoCo Design. As designers, though, we believe that the power of human-centered design thinking can really have an impact, and we think it should be leveraged throughout society to solve some of our biggest challenges, from, you know, how we buy consumer packaged goods, either in store or online, how we access healthcare to keep ourselves and our families healthy, or even how we access social services that we rely on to take care of us when we fall on harder times. We've been able to work, fortunately, firsthand on a lot of these different initiatives, but today we're going to be focusing on one that's a little bit near and dear to us, and that's thinking about social services. They have a unique ability to change our lives and change the communities that we live in for the better. But when we're solving some of these big, hairy challenges like this, we need to take a human-centered approach. So today, we've got some leaders from Smart Columbus and the MidOhio Food Collective. They're really challenging the status quo and how we meet the needs of our community. We're really excited to be joined by them today. Not only do they align with our aspirations as an organization and as individuals, and how we think and how we like to work, but they're also making some of the most impact, leading some of the most ambitious projects in Columbus today. I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to hand it over to Jordan Davis. Do you mind just introducing yourself, where you're from, what you do, and then we'll pass it around the group?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Lacey. And I see Ben's on here too. So Captain of TechLife, thanks for organizing all of this. My name is Jordan Davis. I'm the executive director of Smart Columbus, one of the co-organizers with Can't Stop Columbus, and a co-conspirator with Nick and the food bank. But just really grateful to be with all of you. I've been with the Columbus Partnership for over a decade now, really thinking about how we move big things forward for the community. And I'm excited that Smart Columbus has really become a laboratory for the community in deploying emerging technologies to improve people's lives and thinking about how we can take that beyond mobility. And so really interested in sharing with you what we've been learning along the way, and hopefully getting some further collaboration with many of you on the call.
Mackenzie, you wanna round out Smart Columbus?
Sure. My name is Mackenzie King. I'm Director of Innovation Initiatives over at Smart Columbus, working closely with Jordan and also having an opportunity to partner closely with Nick Davis of the MidOhio Food Collective. I'm also a co-organizer of Can't Stop Columbus and looking forward to getting more of you involved in that initiative. We've had an opportunity to partner with literally dozens of community organizations across our community, and really leveraging human-centered design as much as we can to better understand the needs of our community, specifically as we respond to the pandemic. So looking forward to the discussion today. Thanks, Andrew and Lacey.
And last but not least, Nick.
Thanks, buddy. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, Nick Davis, I'm the Chief Platform Officer at the MidOhio Food Collective, which basically means I oversee technology, strategy, innovation, all the kind of new and fun stuff that we're trying to do around the community. I'm also the Chief Digital Officer at Forbes Ignite. So we're a social innovation coalition trying to change the world, and the author of the bestseller Future Ready, A Changemaker's Guide to the Exponential Revolution. So if anyone wants a free book, hit me up. Nothing else, can be sit on your coffee table, or we can obviously talk about food for sure too.
I love that. Well, thank you guys again for joining us today. Before diving in, I want to share a couple notes of what's to come in our hour together. So throughout, we're going to have some opportunities to directly ask questions. Feel free to tee those up in the chat in real time, and we'll try and capture those. But if we don't see them right away, we'll have some break moments to talk through those. We're also going to do breakout rooms at the end to network and meet new people. If you don't know Ben Blanquera, who's a dynamo, he was organizing these things in real life for years. And one of the biggest things we miss is like getting to actually connect with people and meet new people and hear their stories. And so while you're going to get to do that today firsthand from our fabulous speakers, we want you to connect to some new people too. So we will be doing breakout rooms at the end so you can connect with some new folks. Also, feel free to leave your LinkedIn URL, whether it's in the chat or if you just share it directly at the end with the people in your breakout room. We would love to get to know new people. And then two, I saw a great chat note come in that our email list sign up has a permissions issue. So we will fix that while we are talking. So thank you for that note. Awesome. So to dive in, Nick, I'm going to ask a question of you first as you take a sip of coffee. Sorry about that. That's always my timing. I think to start, so I've known you, buddy, for years and just love all the work you do, but I know not everybody knows all the great work you do. Could you start by just telling us a little bit about the people that the MidOhio Food Collective serve?
Yeah, I mean, in generalities, unfortunately, in our community right now with COVID, especially, about 1 out of every 5 individuals is food insecure, and in certain counties that we serve, even worse, right, down to almost 1 in 3, 1 in 4, and so, ultimately across the 20 counties that we serve, half of which the individuals are right here in Franklin County, they represent about 500,000 or so. Food insecure families, which basically means, an individual who's 200% or below poverty. And so, it's everything from, obviously, children who are, interrupted with their school lunch programs because they haven't been able to go to school, all the way through individuals who are having job disruption and others. I will say that since COVID started, actually, we've had an increase of about 60,000 families that we've served, which is obviously is on top of the 500,000 that we were already serving every year. So it's about enough food to feed 170,000 people every day, to give you some idea on the context there. We often will tell people that you can't food bank your way out of hunger, which sounds like a weird thing to say for someone who works at a food bank, but the problem is so insurmountable that ultimately emergency relief of food is not going to get us out of these situations, which is why so often we are focusing more on the upstream issues that the individual may be facing, because we know that if we can get them a better paying job or solve that transportation issue or solve for that healthcare issue, ultimately that will help them move themselves out of poverty and not be hungry anymore. Or hopefully, if we can get good enough with machine learning, we can intervene even before they have that disruption and never get hungry to begin with, which is obviously a lot of the work that I'm doing with my compadres here on the phone. And I have a 5-year-old in the background who's not in kindergarten yet, so you're going to hear a little bit of entertainment in the background. My apologies.
No worries,
I
Nick.
love-
Can you elaborate a little bit on kind of what the experience is today for these individuals as they try to access some of these resources that are available to them?
Yeah, I'll answer it with a really quick. Before March of last year, the average individual was, basically hearing about a pantry through probably their network or trying to Google and find it online, which might have been difficult. And going to a pantry, a school, a church basement, a soup kitchen, somewhere to access food. Most likely they had to somehow coordinate their schedule where the 2 or 3 hours that it was open during that daytime, they would go down there, wait in line for, in many cases, unfortunately, multiple hours in order to get into that location and get food. That probably doesn't sound ideal for anyone on this call. It is a terrible experience, quite frankly. And so if we want to talk about customer centricity, that is unfortunately the way that the system had to be built for years to meet the need, but it is not ideal. And when COVID hit, it was interesting because you'd hear in the food banking world, we can't possibly change our model, like this is going to be really difficult. Well, we changed from in-store shopping, so walk through a pantry and pick food, to curbside delivery, which means you're not picking your food, unfortunately, but we pack a box for you, put it in your trunk within 11 days across 680 partners. So think about that. Like, we were all forced to very quickly change how we work. Everyone got sent home. Our entire food bank volunteering network disappeared almost overnight. Fortunately, the National Guard, who's still there with us today, was able to step in. But it was a huge disruption to our system. We were lucky enough, I remember the night that Jordan texted me and said, what do you think if I send this tweet and I ask the community to engage in these really cool projects? And I was like, awesome, send it, right? And it was 48 hours later where Can't Stop Columbus was born. So, as always, Jordan, thank you for doing that. What that led to was us being able to go and put one of the pilot projects onto that group. We've got some amazing engineering talent to help us build what is now freshtrack.com. Basically anyone in our community can go there, put in their zip code, and find food at that moment that they can access. And in many cases, pre-register for it. That way it's available and ready the moment that they arrive. That is a first step. That is literally not even par for the course in my mind, that someone could sign up for the service and get it ready and have it ready when they get there. We want to obviously go much further than that, but it is a new app that we build. I mean, it's browser-based, mobile responsive, and arguably one of the most compelling things that we've built to be able to make that customer experience better for the individual. Now, what do we lose? We lose, unfortunately, shopping, right? You imagine going to the grocery store, someone hands you a box and you can't pick what's in it. That sucks, right? What if you're getting things you don't like? So we're moving as fast as we can to online ordering, and we're partnering with Feeding America's national office to be able to do that. So an individual can go in, pick their food, get their food delivered to home. We just found out we're launching a pilot with Amazon here locally, where literally the food will be delivered to a person's house in this pilot, so they never have to leave. And ultimately, then we're also gathering more information in the app around the social determinants of health, so the rest of the parts of their life, so we can refer them to other services that they might need, which is our unicorn goal here at the end, is solving for the upstream stuff. So hopefully better experience. Still, Andrew, quite frankly, we're in the middle of it. Not ideal. It's still curbside. They're still not picking things up. But I'll say that our ability to do throughput for those lines we all saw on TV with 10,000 people in line in Texas, which also runs on our systems, we were able to vastly expedite that with a lot of the work that Can't Stop Columbus teams did. I mean, it didn't just impact this community, it literally impacted communities all around the country.
I love that. There's so much more to dig into the great work that you're doing. I can't, people's minds are probably being blown by all the different projects and initiatives you guys have spinning. Before we get into that though, Jordan, could you share any additional thoughts you might have about the audiences that you serve in Columbus, how they relate to Nick's audiences, to our community at large, especially from the perspective of Smart Columbus?
Yeah, happy to. So for many of you, you've known Smart Columbus as the grant project that the community won starting in 2016, which Columbus successfully competed against 78 other cities, beating out in the final round San Francisco, Austin, Denver, Pittsburgh, Kansas City to be the ultimate winner of $50 million to deploy technology to improve primarily transportation to improve lives. And so for the past 4 years, we've been really focused on transportation in terms of connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, shared mobility, electrifying transportation, and then supporting that ecosystem with a backbone of data. And all of those projects that were initially committed to the federal government and to our grantor of Vulcan have been deployed. So all of them are live now, which is a big accomplishment in of itself. But the primary users of those projects really was the neighborhood of Linden. So Linden actually has the highest concentration of technology, transportation technology than really any area in an urban setting in the world, which is pretty amazing to say. I think what's interesting about that notion is this relationship of being a living laboratory so having market forces of how these technologies are going to be deployed kind of directed at some of the most vulnerable users and most critical needs. So in Linden, we have some of the most unsafe intersections, meaning where we have the highest crash rates. And so that's where we're deploying connected vehicle technology to really improve the safety in those intersections. Some very high dependency on public transit, and therefore meaning biggest gaps in first mile, last mile, meaning long walks to get to the bus stop for a place where a lot of people depend on that. So solving those solutions. We're also actually using the autonomous vehicle in that neighborhood. If many of you have followed the autonomous vehicle developments over the years, we initially had an autonomous vehicle running downtown. Then we had the second route running in Linden for our first mile, last mile connection to transit. And it's actually pivoted during COVID to delivering food. So it delivers a few hundred boxes of food a week to residents in Linden through an autonomous vehicle, which is pretty cool. But I think there's a story there in of itself. But I think through the pandemic, there's so much more that we've rallied around in the community to try and really understand where need is. So since we're not, out in the community, but instead behind computers in our own homes, we're further and further away from maybe where some of the greatest challenges are being felt in the community. I don't know how many of you feel that way or have created a comfort in your own lives during COVID. And it takes, reading the news or some type of point of awareness to realize that not everybody is enjoying that level of comfort and balance in their life. And so using the tools of human-centered design to really start to understand what those problems are. And we've been partnering with the Columbus Foundation and then many corporations like Ohio Health, Nationwide, ZoCo, Lexington as well, to really try and understand those problems. And Mackenzie can share a lot of the outputs of that work. But I think for our primary purpose is to really try and find where there are quality of life issues that are creating barriers to opportunity. Where do those exist in the community, and how could technology be a new tool in our toolbox for changing the outcomes? So often, and I'm going to get on a soapbox for a minute and then I'll turn it over, but so often we kind of accept that this is always the way that's been done, or some of these problems can never be solved. But the reality is we now have technology, and we didn't have that 2 decades ago, or really a decade ago in many sense. We were just adopting the iPhone 10 years ago. So we really have changed what we can do and how we can provide services. And I think what the pandemic has taught us is that those who are the most digital mature got through this pandemic most successfully. And so how do we kind of think of technology and digital maturity as a key to our resiliency and our success, and key to how we do work in the community? And when we know that being poor is really expensive, we know that being poor is very inconvenient. It's very time consuming. There's a lot of hassles that go into being poor. What if we could save for people an hour a day through conveniences that we bring through digital experiences, right? What if they could access everything on demand, just like we can when we can afford it through Amazon and other things? So I think that that's just a provocative way to think. And that's exactly what Nick and the food bank are modeling, is how do we make it easier for people to plan and coordinate their life? Like, let's not make these things hurdles, right? And so I think that is a really interesting kind of value proposition that maybe in this next chapter of our community and in our recovery, we can think differently about how we achieve equity by incorporating kind of this digital experience alongside how we experience our community.
I love that. And you're answering so many of my questions too about barriers that stand in the way. There's a lot of challenges, right, as you just addressed, for people to actually be able to rise and meet the need. Mackenzie, as Jordan highlighted, you've been leading a lot of these special internal projects. Could you give us a little background about what Smart Columbus has done to build empathy and understanding with the audience? As Jordan said, it's much harder in an environment where we're largely stuck at home, but I know you've been finding unique new ways in order to build that empathy. I'd love to hear more about that for the group.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I feel like I've been involved in, and many of you have been involved in, like dozens of hackathons where you jump in and you start to get your hands dirty and start building a prototype. And we've seen the energy across our tech community to contribute in that way. What we've wanted to do is provide that opportunity of pause before diving into a development project in particular, to really understand what the needs of the community are. And this has ranged pretty drastically from pausing in partnership with the Columbus Foundation to understand what working parents need as their home. Early in the pandemic, you have many parents were juggling both the childcare and the work needs of their full-time jobs. That project resulted in a partnership with COSI, where we developed a curriculum that allows for parents to use a teach back method with their children. We've also partnered with Dress for Success. They came to us and said, what do we do now that our suiting process for women seeking employment has to be virtual? Women are now, instead of coming into their boutique to try on clothing to get ready for their interviews, they are receiving a box as they come to curbside to pick it up. But what happens during that process of choosing clothing is actually much more than just choosing clothing. As we know, there's a relationship built with their coach, and there's some confidence building that occurs and really helping these women get back into the employment game. So we worked with their team, their clients, their staff, to better understand like what really happens during that process of preparing for work, preparing for an interview, and choosing clothing for that interview, helping them understand that journey, each step, and possible pain points along that step now that we're going to a virtual environment. And really thinking through where could those digital interactions take place in a way that could perhaps even build some efficiencies in the process and free up time of their coaches and mentors to really provide some richer experiences and coaching. So we've partnered with them for that design sprint phase, which was really telling and provided some great insights to their board, not alone just to inform the actual technology project. And then we were able to bring corporation to the table, Grange Insurance, to support the actual development of one of the ideas that came out of that sprint, which was an interactive quiz that takes place at the front end of the onboarding process to better understand style preferences and better get to know the woman herself in preparing for that process of selecting clothing and getting her prepped up for her interview. So we've had a chance to go through this design sprint process at the front end of a process to inform development. We've also, in some cases, invited residents and end users into the actual process itself. So for instance, we partnered with Columbus Foundation to understand graduating high school seniors and the challenges that they were facing during the season of prom and graduation, all those things that they were missing at the end of last year. We invited those students, several of them, into the ideation process, even beyond sort of capturing insights from them, but really capturing an opportunity for them to be creative and ideate around how they can raise the spirits of their peers and get through the pandemic when it was in essence like really stifling their opportunity to celebrate their senior year. In addition, we've had a chance to really fine tune some of this design sprint process. We're now at a phase where, as I mentioned, corporations are coming to the table to say, you know, here is a team of skilled practitioners that want to contribute. So Nationwide Innovation came to the table and they supported us in several of those design sprints. And it's been interesting because it's not only, you know, an opportunity to give back and have a positive social impact in the community, but it's also, in the case of Nationwide Innovation, an opportunity for some of their employees to have a hands-on experience of the design thinking process that's so critical to their innovation that they do on a day-to-day basis for their own business. So, you know, we're starting to see not only the impact of design thinking and human-centered design for these social issues, but we're really celebrating the fact that design thinking is integral to the way that technology is invented and iterated upon in our community in general, which is great.
I love that, Mackenzie. You guys have truly been champions for this in the community across all sorts of places. Guys, what do you think? We have so many great faces on the call, although feel free to show your faces. I know it's early, but I would love to take a few minutes to address any questions. I know that there's not any in the chat right now, but I want to do this at a couple breaks throughout, just that way it doesn't all go till the end. What are you guys wondering related to these things that the MidOhio Food Collective is doing, that Smart Columbus is doing, related to the people they're serving and how they're solving problems? I know we have some great thinkers on this call this morning. What wonderments do you have for Mackenzie, Jordan, and Nick? Feel free to just unmute yourself and go for it.
Hey, good morning. I appreciate the content. I'm learning a lot. I didn't know that this stuff existed, so I really appreciate getting to learn about it. I did have a question. One thing that Nick said that really stuck with me is he said, you can't food bank your way out of this problem. So many of these problems are systemic, and it's really great to hear what we're doing about food insecurities and helping people with food insecurities. But what is the bigger vision for kind of pulling people out of poverty so that they can, I guess, so that we're not food banking our way out of this?
Oh, that's a good one. Welcome to Milo. You know, I think what I'll focus on is one of the ones that, you know, that this group here is specifically probably the most aggressively focused on right now. And this is between Smart Columbus, ZoCo, ourselves, and many of the community leaders here in the region. We're working on an initiative called CIE, so Community Information Exchange. This is not a new idea that we came up with. This is something that we are, quite frankly, stealing a lot of the best practices from San Diego for creating in many different regions around the country who are building something similar. And what it is basically is, you know, the idea that, you know, we as, you know, institutions that are charged with helping the individuals in our community have always been, sadly, fairly siloed. Right, I feed someone, and then they go to, you know, community housing board to get housing support or SEMA or something, and they walk across the street and they go into their local healthcare provider and fill out stuff there, filling out these just really bureaucratic and long forms everywhere, and no coordination of those services. So you can imagine it's very emergency relief approach and not very thoughtfully done for how am I going to help this person in the long run. Again, as I said earlier, I understand for years why those things were ran that way, but we're really trying to address that more comprehensively now in our community. So we're all partnered on this project, and the basic idea is that we want to leverage the latest technologies. And I'll talk about the design aspect of this in just a second. But imagine, AI, ML, hell, I hope we go all the way to deep learning at some point here, where we can say, if we get all the data from these different institutions into one place, one profile for an individual, it will then allow us to understand the nuances of when they move in and through the network of offerings that are built in for support. And we can start to more predictively push them towards a path that is going to get them out of the situation faster. So I'm going to use an example, actually, like literally that Sandeep, obviously, you're asking the question. We often will see people with multiple different things going on in their life, right? So single parent, multiple jobs, transportation issues. The story I often tell is, some months ago, I was on Facebook Marketplace looking for, I don't know, probably something I didn't need, or I don't know, just seeing whatever goofy stuff people put on there. And, someone had posted on there, hey, looking to buy a RV for like $7,000, right? And it was like, I don't know, I was just randomly reading it because I was bored. And I got down in the chat group, and people were like, offering to sell or buy or whatever. And the woman who had posted the question said, actually, because of COVID, I lost my job. We're losing our house. All the money I have left is to buy this RV so my son and I have a place to live. And, then it breaks your heart. I got into the message group and I was like, listen, if food is an issue, email me. I will get you fed every day. How can we help? And she responded back and was like, that's absolutely the sweetest thing ever. We can't get to a pantry. We can't get there. We don't have the ability right now to drive to it. And honestly, it's crushing, where you're you see these needs, and ultimately, with, CODA and the work that we're doing through transportation with Smart Columbus and the partnerships through Lyfts and Ubers, there's gotta be a way for us to solve that supply chain issue, right? And so for me, it really is starting to think of it as a more holistic, in this case, to use the design language, customer centricity. I mean, it's an awesome thing to think about, what is the customer experience of this lovely energy drink? And what is the beautiful design that they are willing to put on the label to make someone want to drink it more? No. It's a whole different ball game when we're designing for the fact that, if we don't fix the way that they can get access, people will go hungry, right? And I'll tell you one that this is my week here. So last week, I was meeting with one of our partners to work on this data sharing piece. And she leads one of the church organizations here in town that houses some of the homeless and some of the groups that we feed. We bring food down there every day. We've been feeding the homeless in the city this entire time since COVID started. And it was cold last week, if you remember. An individual went to her organization late at night because of staffing. There was only one person on duty to try and give them a bed. They were just trying to get food that we had delivered earlier that day. Well, they got to the door. The person was downstairs trying to help someone else. They laid down on the stoop and died right there on the steps. So these are real problems that we're trying to fix. Had they been able to, alert us through the app or find a way to be able to get access to our services in a more customer-centric way versus the middle of the night, we might have been able to save that person's life. Right? Those are real things for us. And so, I think the long-term view for how we're going to solve this is us thinking about it from a design perspective, like we've been taught in so many of the design thinking and customer centricity and empathy work that we do. We have to look at it systemically, all the way at the top. What's causing these issues? In many cases, the vast majority of the time, it's pay inequities. Minimum wage, this whole conversation that we're having nationally right now, is a huge issue for these things. We have to get people higher pay so they can have a sustaining wage, and then ultimately then they can get access to a job market that allows them to support their family. Until then, we're just going to have to think of more and more creative ways to get people food philanthropically.
Love that. Nick, speaking of getting people the skills they need, Dennis just sent a great question in. Dennis, would you like to share your question for the group?
Sure. Okay. Recently retired, and I think I still have some tech skills, but they're probably outdated by now. So I'm wondering how people can volunteer if they have some tech skills, but that may be a little out of or a lot out of date, or maybe more recent skills.
Dennis, look out. Mackenzie's about to sign you up for Smart Columbus. I love it. You're going to help.
It's probably a you question.
We can't stop Columbus. It's great.
Yeah, Dennis, we'd love to get you involved. The best way to get involved is there's a volunteer form, and you can get that at can'tstopcolumbus.com. And it's really important for us to spend time in that matchmaking process. So what we usually do is get to know your skills, and then look at the projects that we have active. And we have 60 projects that have been created in the pipeline, and several of them are active right now and very much in need of tech skills, design research skills, even social media and project management. So the needs range pretty drastically. And yes, you can come in with really specific tech skills, even if you think they might be outdated. We probably do need an extra hand. For instance, the vaccine availability project is bringing people on board to help scrape websites like CVS and Walgreens that have their vaccine availability appointments on their site, but may not be able to share them with us in a standardized data form, unfortunately. So we're having to get creative on how to get that data off the site and into a centralized database to share more publicly with residents so they can schedule their appointments. I'm sure you guys have all heard from either your parents, grandparents, or yourself that scheduling the vaccine appointment is quite a headache right now. And we're working with the Franklin County Department of Public Health as well as City Public Health in the Association of Ohio Health Commissioners to figure out a way to make this a bit more of a seamless process, particularly as we enter into the next phase of vaccine deployment. It's only going to get, those websites are only going to get busier. So we want to help the community get better access. So yes, a whole range of skills are needed. And even if you don't have tech skills, we've probably got a place for you, even particularly with this vaccine availability project. We've talked to a team over in Massachusetts who they really, they needed extra help even just with the data collection process of going to websites, collecting the appointments, putting them into a database, and then allowing that to then populate their website. So sometimes you do have to go to a manual process, unfortunately, in some cases, but we could definitely use some extra help. So thanks so much for offering.
That's great.
Thank you.
I love the energy that gets built around these initiatives. As soon as we start talking about them, right? I think it's just kind of infectious. Like, how can we get involved? Oh, maybe infectious is taboo now. I don't know. So I wonder, in the sake of time, let's maybe jump ahead, because I think we could spend hours with each of you individually talking about all the crazy things that you're doing. But for right now, let's maybe start with Jordan. Could you give us a synopsis? Maybe this is a challenging question for what comes next for your organization. Like, what does your ideal future look like? And then maybe after you answer, Nick, you can tell us what the MidOhio Food Collective looks like.
Sure. So what's next for us? So I think there's some clear things that we are, going arm in arm with the community to try and solve for. Most importantly, is really thinking about how do we ensure that every resident can get affordable internet in their home. So we're actually, I think Mackenzie even put it in the chat earlier, but cbuswifi.com, you can learn about 2 pilots that we're working on right now that should go live at the end of the month, early April. And they are CBRS technologies. So kind of small cell base stations that then require just a kind of a connectivity device in the home. So it doesn't require that last mile fiber line to be laid, which could save a significant amount of money to be able to scaling this type of technology. And so we're trialing this in the Near East Side and on the South Side for about 700 families. Both use cases are around active learners, so Columbus City school families, others who have school-aged kids at home. And then the second use case is telehealth. So those who need regular appointments with healthcare that they could probably achieve through in their own home. So think about maybe potentially a mother or a pregnant woman who is, needing to just check in with their prenatal doc, make sure their blood pressure and things like that are all level. So this would be catered towards those types of use cases. So we're excited to see what we learn there, and then hopefully as a community alongside the City of Columbus and the Regional Planning Commission and the foundation, we can scale this so that every resident in Columbus has an affordable option to get really adequate internet in their home, which is an important nuance there, making sure that they have bandwidth to be able to handle multiple Zoom calls, et cetera. Another thing that we're obviously working on is we still really want to nurture Can't Stop Columbus, and Mackenzie can kind of talk about what's next with Can't Stop Columbus. But I mean, I think that is such an important new muscle for the community to have. So when frontline organizations or, critical needs are identified by residents, there is this brigade of people who are willing to rally and try and solve for that in new and different ways. And so I think it's proven to be such a powerful platform for organizing and for doing. And we hope to continue to nurture that to continue to be essential into the future. We are looking towards the future. So what does the future of a city look like, right? So we know technology will be used in a lot of ways. The movement of goods will become increasingly important. So how does that look? Maybe it's in delivery pods of sorts. Maybe it's in autonomous vehicles. What does the future movement of people look like? Is it aerial? Is it drones? So really trying to explore those ideas and bring those forward with the community. But also thinking about what does digital experience look like in the community? How do we ensure that accessing community or critical needs is as easy as buying a backpack off of Amazon? How do we really strive for that? And so trying to be partners in the community to help us think about how we increase our digital maturity and increase how we think about experience. And I think what's the beautiful part about what we can do with Smart Columbus is think of it as an agile and nimble arm for the community to being honest about what our problems are and trying some things we've never tried before. And so I'm really most excited about the unknown. So what do we not know? How do we know it better? And then how do we bring really great people, many of you together, put your minds together to think about how we might solve that. So I'm excited about all the things I don't know, but there's a lot to come, and I look forward to sharing that with the community this summer.
It's a great tee up. Nick, what's the future vision for the food bank? Tell us more.
Gosh, well, I mean, obviously the furthest out vision would be a community where we don't have hunger, but ignoring the fact that obviously that would be pretty difficult. We'll often these days talk about it in the kind of language of like right time, right place, right food. Is a lot of our kind of future strategy. And what we mean by that is, when we've gone from this brand of like the MidOhio food bank that we were, for the last 30 or so odd years, and we recently last year moved to this new branding of like the MidOhio Food Collective. And we have now leveled off kind of 5 main assets by which we deliver our work. So, pharmacy with an F, so pharm-C, our farms, our markets, our food banks, and a lot of the technology work and stuff that we're doing. Like, those are all things for us to actually start to expand out the work that we're doing to be much more customer centric. And what I mean by that is each one is serving a particular purpose that we're trying to impact through our long-term vision. So with our farm, it's not just a farm, right? We've got 7 acres in the hilltop, and we're building out with partners like Jordan, the smart farm of tomorrow, right? It's going to be like literally like the tech Disneyland of farming. We've got all kinds of fun renderings and stuff for it, but it's an amazing site where we're going to be showcasing the latest technologies for how individuals can grow either in an urban setting, their backyard, rooftops, I mean, flying drones, farm bots, automation, like all the bells and whistles of growing. So we can work to teach the community how we can each grow our own food, right? How other farmers can use these latest technologies to grow their own foods and expand the amount of food that we have available here in our community and locally down to like the individual house or block level. It's stuff like that that we're really trying to lean into to focus more on the education of how we can get more food into the system versus just being in this, again, emergency food relief, feed you that particular day. Or for our pharmacy program, which is basically food is health, starting to level off the conversation around it's not just about getting food in people's hands, it's about getting fresh, healthy food in people's hands and teaching them about nutrition and BMIs and H1C scores and really starting to think about the best recipe in the world, or I'm sorry, best prescription in the world for any of us for most of our ailments is what we put in our bodies. And so, 65% now of the food that we put through the food bank is actually fresh, healthy food, like vegetables. I mean, it's amazing that we're moving so quickly away from the sugary stuff on shelves. It is long-term sustainable. It's easier for us to push that food through the network. But what we really want to do is start to level off and say, can we get broccoli? Can we get kale? Can we get these other things that are perishable? Sure, but are much healthier for our community and our people in there. So ultimately, Lacey, it's growing those programs so they can have the impact that we believe they will in our community. Obviously, you're graciously been building, our latest one on upskilling for Readyskill. That sounds weird when I go out and tell people that the food bank is building an app to help people skill up and get social services help while they're doing it. But we are. We believe that, like I've said many times on this, that feeding someone in all perpetuity as they stay in a situation of poverty is not our ideal situation. So if we can lean more heavily towards, let's get them skilled up, let's get them into this new modern economy of tech forward jobs and, ultimately change their lives. That means, if they're in that program, we have to feed them every day for 16 weeks to ensure that they aren't food insecure so they can upskill. We're going to do it. And, that to me, it changes generations of families in many cases. And it's a more of a long-term vision for, making a true impact on our community versus, again, just, give you food for today, you'll be hungry again tomorrow.
I love that. That's so awesome. Well, I know we are at 8:50 and we could honestly spend hours and hours with all three of them. And we probably will feature them more in the future because we're going to continue this content. I want to do one rapid fire question just because she had asked at the last round. And then after that, we'll ship a poll to see what your experiences were like today and then put you into breakout rooms. So stand by if you can, if you have the time to meet some new folks. We actually have some international folks on the call too. So excited to meet some new people. Gabriella, you had a question for Jordan.
Hi, yes. Hi, Jordan. Mackenzie could probably chime in on this one too. But you were speaking about how, individuals who were more tech savvy were doing better during this experience through the pandemic. Are there any initiatives or anything going on a state level that's trying to help people transition into tech? Since things are typically going towards automation now and just a lot of things are changing within the industry, especially restaurants and anything that has to do with, customer facing industries. Is there anything going on that's helping people change their jobs and make that transition so they can have better job security in the future?
Well, we are working on it. I don't know, Nick or Mackenzie, if you guys want to talk about a very exciting project. I don't know, Nick, how much you want to share.
If you could share it in like a 45-second snippet.
Yeah.
It's literally the app that I was just referencing. And so, you can see the overview at readyskill.io is the web address if you want to check it out. We'll be launching this summer. We're in full dev right now to launch the app. But the entire purpose in many cases is either an individual who's underemployed and trying to move into, let's say, tech type work and needs support from their community in order to kind of take that leap, or an individual whose job is being disrupted and trying to go and take, become a data scientist or whatever. Part of the magic of it is we are trying to match the individuals in those programs to their future employer before they start. So you kind of would know where you work, know what you're going to make, know the end goal before you begin, or at least during the program. And then any assistance that's needed during, we provide it as well. But if you're interested in learning more about that one, just email me. I've dropped my email in the chat here, or go to readyskill.io. If you hit info, then it just goes to me anyway. So either one works.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Guys, this has been such a great conversation today. I know we still have a good group of people, so we are going to ship a quick Zoom poll right now. It should take about a minute just to understand your experiences today. So if you don't mind weighing in your feedback while you're doing that, I'll chatter on for a second. We're going to send people out into networking rooms here in just a minute. Also encourage connecting on LinkedIn. So you'll get some more interaction in just a moment. But thanks for the great questions and for letting us highlight some amazing people who are doing great, great work.
Awesome. As these poll results come in, maybe think about this in your next, in this breakout session. Jordan said it really great. There are a lot of these experiences that we just accept at face value, that we overlook. The BMV is a good example of one that we've all had to experience, but we've never really thought about how can human-centered design improve this and make this better. So maybe take that as a prompt in this breakout session, and what we might explore using design thinking to make our experiences better and more impactful and more meaningful. Almost done. We're 93%. All right.
Awesome. Thanks again, everybody. Feel free to connect with any of us on LinkedIn, and we'll see you in some breakout rooms and hopefully also see you next month. Thanks, Stephanie, for also organizing this.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, sending everybody to those rooms as well. Just a moment. Perfect.
Well, it looks like everyone's got to bail from our room.
What was that, Jonathan?
I was saying it looks like everybody's bailing from the room. I actually have to.
Everybody got moved to their breakout rooms, but if you got to head out, no worries.
Yep. Have a good one. Thank you.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Here.
What fearful and sluggish